I'd been anxious for weeks about my upcoming ACL surgery, so I asked my girlfriend to be there. She texted back, "I'm not skipping brunch with my ex. You'll be asleep anyway." I simply replied, "Appreciate the honesty." That evening, a delivery arrived at her door that made her regret every single bite of that brunch. I'm a pretty simple guy. I teach high school history and coach the JV basketball team. My life revolves around lesson plans, late season games, and the quiet satisfaction of seeing a kid finally understand a concept they've been struggling with. My world is built on things like loyalty, teamwork, and showing up for people when they need you. I thought my girlfriend of 3 years, Megan, was part of that team. We lived in the small house my grandfather left me, a place I'd spent every spare weekend for a year fixing up. I thought we were building a life on that solid foundation. I now realize she was just using my foundation to get a better view of something more exciting on the horizon. The problem, as it often is, was an ex-boyfriend. His name was Todd. He was a slick, smooth-talking guy who worked in finance and wore suits that cost more than my car. Megan swore up and down that they were just great friends. But the friendship seemed to involve a lot of expensive dinners that he paid for and a constant stream of texts that would make her smile at her phone in a way she never smiled at me. I'm not a jealous person by nature. My job requires a level head, but the whole situation felt off. It felt like I was the reliable, comfortable choice, and he was the exciting, glamorous option she kept on speed dial. The situation came to a head because of my knee. During a practice with my basketball team, I went up for a rebound and came down wrong. There was a loud pop, a flash of white-hot pain, and that was it. My season was over. The diagnosis was a complete tear of my ACL. Surgery was scheduled. I'm not gonna lie, I was scared. I've never had major surgery before. The thought of the anesthesia, the recovery, the months of painful physical therapy, it was weighing on me heavily. I'm an active guy. My whole life is about being on my feet, in the classroom, on the court. This injury felt like a threat to my entire identity. For weeks, I was a wreck of anxiety, and I leaned on Megan for support. She was good about it at first. She would rub my shoulder and say all the right things, like, "It'll be okay, babe, and you'll be back on the court in no time." I believed her. I needed to. The surgery was scheduled for a Friday morning. The night before, I was a bundle of nerves. I was packing my hospital bag, getting all the paperwork together. Megan was getting ready to go out. She had a long overdue catch-up night with some friends. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I know you have plans, but for tomorrow, I'm really nervous. I know I'll be out for the surgery itself, but would you be there? At the hospital? Just so you're the first person I see when I wake up. It would mean a lot to me." It was a simple request. It was a plea for comfort from the person I loved on one of the scariest days of my life. She stopped putting on her earrings and looked at me, not with sympathy, but with a look of mild irritation. "Oh, honey," she said. "I can't. I completely forgot to tell you. Todd invited me to this amazing brunch tomorrow. It's at that new place downtown that's impossible to get into. He made the reservation weeks ago. I can't just cancel on him." I just stared at her. "Brunch?" I repeated, my voice flat. "You have brunch with your ex-boyfriend?" "It's not a big deal," she said, turning back to the mirror. "It's just brunch. Besides, what's the point of me sitting in a waiting room for 3 hours? You'll be asleep during surgery anyway." And there it was, the cold, hard, selfish logic. My fear, my need for support, my major surgery, it was all an inconvenience that was getting in the way of her social calendar. My being unconscious was not a vulnerable state that required her presence. It was a convenient excuse for her absence. A strange thing happened in that moment. The anxiety I had been feeling for weeks just vanished. It was replaced by a quiet, cold clarity. The fear of the surgery was nothing compared to the sudden, stark realization that I was completely and utterly alone in this relationship. The woman I was building a life with would choose a mimosa with her ex over being there for me at my absolute lowest point. I took a deep breath. I needed to be sure. "So, just to be clear," I said, my voice devoid of all emotion, "you are choosing to go to brunch with Todd instead of being at the hospital while I'm having surgery." She finally turned to face me, her expression a mix of annoyance and defensiveness. "Look, I'm not skipping brunch with my ex. You'll be asleep during surgery anyway. Stop being so dramatic about it. I'll come see you later in the afternoon, after brunch is over." I just nodded slowly. I looked her right in the eye. "Thanks for the honesty," I said. She smiled, relieved. She thought she had handled it. She thought I had accepted her decision. Good, she said. I'm glad you're being reasonable about this. She grabbed her purse, blew me a kiss, and walked out the door. The moment the door clicked shut, I picked up my phone. My hands weren't shaking. My mind was a steel trap. The first person I called was my older sister, Sarah. The second was my parents. I told them what had just happened. The fury in their voices was all the validation I needed. Then I began to formulate a plan. A quiet, simple, devastatingly effective plan. Megan was going to have her brunch. She was going to enjoy every last bite of her fancy eggs Benedict. But I was going to make sure that by the time she got home, the taste in her mouth would be nothing but ash. Update 1. The next morning, it wasn't Megan who drove me to the hospital. It was my dad. My mom was in the passenger seat and my sister Sarah was in the back. They had all driven to my house at 5 in the morning. Their faces a mixture of love, concern, and quiet, simmering rage on my behalf. My real team had assembled. The mood in the car was supportive and calm. We didn't talk much about Megan. We talked about my recovery, about the basketball team, about the summer vacation my parents were planning. They were creating a bubble of normalcy and love around me. And it was exactly what I needed. The anxiety about the surgery was still there, but it was manageable now. It was background noise. The main event in my mind was no longer the operation on my knee, but the operation I had set in motion the night before. While we were in the pre-op waiting area, my sister acted as my field general. She was a lawyer, and her mind was sharp and strategic. She had taken my raw, angry plan and refined it into a thing of beauty. Okay, she said, pulling a small, elegant gift bag out of her purse. It's all ready to go. The plan was simple. We weren't going to cause a public scene. We weren't going to use social media. That was Megan's style, not mine. My revenge was going to be personal, intimate, and aimed directly at the heart of her support system, her own family. I knew Megan's parents, the Davidsons, almost as well as my own. They were good, decent, old-fashioned people. Her father was a retired firefighter and her mother was a kindergarten teacher. They believed in things like duty, loyalty, and family above all else. They adored me. They saw me as the stable, reliable man who was a good influence on their sometimes flighty daughter. They had no idea who their daughter really was when they weren't looking. It was time for a parent-teacher conference. Inside the gift bag was a package. It contained 3 items. First, a handwritten letter. I had written it the night before, after Megan had left. It wasn't angry or accusatory. It was filled with a quiet, profound sadness and disappointment. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Davidson, it began, I am writing this to you from my home the night before my ACL surgery. As you know, I've been very anxious about this for weeks. This morning, I asked Megan for a simple thing. I asked if she would be at the hospital tomorrow, not for the surgery itself, but just to be there when I wake up. I told her how much it would mean to me to see a friendly face when I came out of the anesthesia. She told me she couldn't make it. She has a brunch reservation with her ex-boyfriend, Todd, that she says she cannot miss. She told me that since I would be asleep anyway, there was no point in her being there. The letter went on to talk about what I thought a partnership meant, about being there for each other in times of sickness and fear. It ended with, I realize now that Megan and I have a fundamental disagreement on what it means to be a partner. I am so sorry to be the one to tell you this, but our relationship is over. I cannot build a future with someone who would choose a social lunch over my well-being on one of the most frightening days of my life. I wish you both nothing but the best. The second item was a printed, high-quality screenshot of our text exchange. The cold, hard, undeniable proof of her words. The third item was the masterstroke, my sister's idea. It was a framed photo. A beautiful 5 by 7 picture of me with Mr. and Mrs. Davidson, taken at their family barbecue a few months prior. We were all smiling, arms around each other. It was a picture of the happy, blended family that she was about to destroy. It was a visual reminder of the relationship she had betrayed. My sister had packaged it all beautifully. She had hired a same-day courier service. The package was scheduled to be delivered to the Davidsons' home at 7 p.m. that evening. By then, Megan's brunch would be a distant, happy memory. The timing was everything. As they wheeled me into the operating room, I looked at my family. My mom was crying softly. My dad gave me a firm, reassuring nod. My sister squeezed my hand. We've got this, she said. You just focus on getting better. We'll handle the rest. I was terrified of the surgery. But as the anesthesia began to pull me under, my last thought was not of fear. It was of a courier van making its way across town, carrying a package of truth that was about to change everything. Waking up from anesthesia is a strange, disorienting experience. The world comes back in blurry pieces, sounds are muffled, and your mind feels like it's wading through thick mud. But the first thing I saw when my eyes finally focused was my sister's face. She was smiling down at me. My parents were right behind her. I was safe. I was surrounded by my team. The pain in my knee was immense. A deep, throbbing fire. But the pain in my heart was gone. It had been replaced by a quiet, steady resolve. I spent the night in the hospital. My dad stayed with me, dozing in the uncomfortable visitor's chair. My sister and my mom went home to get some rest, but not before my sister gave me a final update. The package was delivered at 7:15 p.m., she whispered. Mission accomplished. The story of what happened at the Davidson house that night is now a legendary tale in my family. I got the full report from my mother, who got it directly from a tearful, apologetic Mrs. Davidson the next morning. Apparently, Mr. and Mrs. Davidson were having a quiet evening at home when the courier arrived. They were surprised to receive a package and opened it with curiosity. They read my letter first. Mrs. Davidson said her husband read it, then wordlessly passed it to her. She read it, and she said she felt a cold dread wash over her. They looked at the screenshot of the text messages, and their hearts just broke. Then they saw the framed photo of the four of us, smiling together at their barbecue. And that's when Mrs. Davidson started to cry. They were not just sad. They were deeply, profoundly ashamed. They had raised their daughter to be better than this. They had always seen me as a son, a steady, kind man who was a wonderful partner to their daughter. And to see, in black and white, how she had treated me in a moment of genuine need, it shattered their perception of her. They tried to call her, over and over again. Of course she didn't answer. She was at her fancy brunch, which had likely turned into evening cocktails. Her phone was probably on silent, tucked away in her purse. Around 9 p.m., Megan finally called her mother back, her voice bubbly and cheerful, no doubt calling to brag about her amazing day. Mrs. Davidson cut her off. You need to come home, she said, her voice cold. Right now, your father and I need to speak with you. Megan, sensing the tone, apparently tried to argue. But her father got on the phone, and his voice left no room for debate. An hour later, Megan walked into her parents' house, probably expecting a lecture about not calling them back sooner. Instead, she found them sitting in the living room, my letter, the screenshot, and the framed photo laid out on the coffee table like evidence at a crime scene. Her father just pointed at the papers. Explain this, he said. The confrontation was, by all accounts, brutal. Megan tried to lie. She tried to downplay it. She tried to use her usual tactic of painting me as the dramatic, insecure one. But it didn't work. Her parents were armed with the truth, and they were not backing down. They were not just my ex-girlfriend's parents anymore. They were my allies. They were fighting on my behalf. They told her they were disgusted by her selfishness, by her lack of compassion, by her profound disrespect for a man who had given her nothing but stability and love. They told her that she had revealed her true character, and that they were deeply disappointed. The fight ended with her father delivering an ultimatum. You will go to that young man's house tomorrow, he had said. You will pack every single one of your belongings. You will leave his key on the counter, and you will not contact him again. Your free ride is over. You are going to learn what it means to be a responsible adult. She was left with no support, no allies, and nowhere to go but back to her childhood bedroom, her tail between her legs. Her fancy brunch had cost her everything. Final update. It has been a year and a half since my surgery. The recovery was long and grueling, just as I had feared. There were days of intense pain, of frustrating setbacks, of feeling like I would never be the same again. But I was never alone. My family was there every step of the way, and in a strange and unexpected twist, so were the Davidsons. Davidsons started dropping off meals at my house twice a week. You need to eat to heal, she'd say, refusing any attempts to thank her. Mr. Davidson came over on weekends. He helped me with things I couldn't do on my own, like mowing the lawn or changing a light bulb. He would just sit with me and watch a game. We didn't talk about Megan. We didn't have to. Their actions spoke louder than any words ever could. They were showing me, in their own quiet way, that they were on the side of loyalty and character. They were my family now, too. Megan, as instructed, Had her brother come and move her things out of my house the day I got home from the hospital. I never saw her. I never spoke to her again. The silence was a relief. The story of her life after the breakup is one I've heard in passing. She lived with her parents for a while, under their strict new rules. It didn't last. She couldn't handle the accountability. She moved out and is now living with a roommate in a small apartment on the other side of town. The ex-boyfriend, Todd, disappeared from the picture almost immediately. The fun of their relationship was apparently contingent on my financial stability funding her lifestyle. Once that was gone, so was he. She works full-time now, trying to make ends meet. The glamorous life she craved is nowhere in sight. As for me, my life has moved forward in ways I never expected. My physical therapist was a kind, funny, and incredibly patient woman named Laura. She pushed me to work harder than I thought I could, and she celebrated every small victory with me. We spent months working together, and somewhere along the way, our professional relationship turned into a deep friendship and then into something more. We started dating 6 months ago. It's a quiet, easy love. It's built on a foundation of mutual respect and genuine care. She was there for me at my weakest, and she saw me fight to get my strength back. She knows who I am at my core. Last week, I took her to meet my family. My parents and my sister adored her instantly. Then, I took her to meet the Davidsons. It was a little awkward at first, but Mrs. Davidson just gave her a warm hug and said, "Any woman who can put up with this one when he's grumpy deserves a medal. Welcome to the family." My revenge wasn't about a single, dramatic moment of confrontation. It was about truth and consequences. I didn't have to yell or scream or shame Megan myself. I simply presented the facts to the people whose judgment she could not escape. I let her own family hold her accountable for her lack of character. She thought I would be asleep during surgery and that it didn't matter. But I woke up. I woke up in more ways than one. I woke up to the truth of who she was. And I woke up to the love of the people who truly had my back. She regretted her brunch, I'm sure of it. But I don't think she'll ever understand the real price she paid. It wasn't just a boyfriend or an apartment. It was a family, and now that family is mine.